Welcome to the Revolution Church podcast.
There we go. Good morning. How's it going, everybody? Buenos dias. All right, anyway, welcome to Revolution, everybody. Thank you, Ken. Glad it sounds good and looks good. That's my blanket from Riot Fest that I got when my good buddy Brent called me one day and said, yo, come to Chicago and see the Misfits reunite. And I said, and then he's like, and Morrissey will be there. And I was like, and then he was like, Social Distortion will be there, and the Descendants will be there. And so I went to Chicago, but there's the dead time. So I bought the blanket so I could lay under a tree. It was like a 2-day fest, lay under a tree, 3-day fest, I think. Put it on and just sleep under the tree. It was a good time. Yeah, Danzig. Well, good morning, everybody. Glad to see you here. I can't believe it's August 1st. Honestly, I just wrote my rent check because had no idea that it was August until this morning, and I was like, holy moly, it's August. July is over. We're all getting older and we're dying. It's the good news, yeah? This pain won't last forever. So anyway, you don't hear that every Sunday morning at church, do you? Or gatherings, as we call this now. So yeah, my kiddos are, I got a new parenting schedule, which I know everybody loves to hear about, especially Pete. Pete Rollins just loves for me to go over my parenting schedule with him. He's just, he's a beautiful mind. He just loves to go over it. We're doing the 5-5-2 or the 5-2-5-2. I don't know even how you say all that stuff. Anybody who's divorced and has kids will know what I'm talking about. So we had a really choppy parenting schedule. So I just had my kids for 5 days, which is the longest stretch we've had since with this new schedule. And so I've got a couple stuffies, as my kids call them, mini stuffies. I always buy them stuffed animals, probably because I'm my mother's son and gifts are my love language. Oh, and what's that? Original Sex Pistols UK framed edition. Yeah, it is. That's weird that that's there. It's really beat up, so that's why I just put it in the frame. Like, even the record is like pretty scratched, but it's pretty awesome. So there you go. Enjoy that. I know it's backwards, but drink it in. Lot going on, so let's just kind of get some practicalities out of the way. First of all, is you're probably going, where's Caleb? Caleb is decided to take some time off, a leave of absence for a little bit, to kind of deal with some personal stuff in his own life. And so it's, like I said, it's temporal, and he'll be back, but he's going to take some time off and work on some stuff in his own life. And so he's still here in Seattle, but just be thinking about him. If you praying for him, and I will let him decide on how much he wants to share and doesn't want to share with folks. So if you're his friends, you can reach out to him, but just respect his privacy as well. Be a good lads. Good laddies. So yeah, that's going on. And with that happening right now, Caleb brings a lot to the table for the church, for the community. I'm sorry, I still say the word. It's not that we're not a church, it's just I'm just kind of getting tired of the church's that word church right now. Everybody's so divided. We'll talk about that when I get into my talk. But Caleb brings a lot to the table. His ideas for the meet your congregation afterwards, and also he doesn't meet your congregation, but he also the afterglow. And so usually I have him back there reading some of the stuff. So I'll try to read some of your comments because I do like that part. But Caleb brought that all in, and he's a integral part of that. So right now we're not going to have all of that going on for a bit of time. So definitely his presence is going to be missed because he's an integral part of this work. So please be patient with us and everything we're doing as we go move forward. Now Josh, who you'll see on the Revolution handle, who's in Long Island, and that's why he likes my hat. So Reverend Vince told me when I moved to New York I could not like the Yankees anymore because it's like voting for your landlord's team. And funny enough, my landlord, who I was friends with, was a Mets fan. But anyway, so I'm missing Brooklyn. I'm missing New York. It's hot. I saw it and I had to get it. So this is me carrying a little Brooklyn with me today. So there's that. So Josh is going to be helping us out. Me and Josh actually met this week over the phone, and we talked about New York hardcore. We talked this week about, we went over the Mevo camera that we purchased, and we figured it out. The only thing we got to figure out now is how we pay for multiple things. So we're hoping to be on multiple channels, so like people can be able to watch the service, not just here on Facebook Live, but we're already on YouTube, but it will be on YouTube, then live on YouTube, and then maybe even live on Twitter, and who knows, maybe even live on Instagram. So we'd have multiple places that we are live at once, which would really help get the word out, Obviously, we'll be looking for locations in Seattle soon, but a lot's going on with the coronavirus, kind of everything it's doing and all the media confusion. So we're just going to kind of, play it cool and see what happens. It's been a long week for Jay. Very long week. Caleb's dealing with his stuff, and also, last week we canceled because I got some bad news right before service. I'm tired, and it's been a tough week. Also, one of the things I wanted to tell you guys is that financially the church is not doing good in July. Now that it's August 1st, I guess I can say there was no pay. I didn't get paid in July. We got our bills taken care of that needed to be taken care of, and that's good. But we're not doing great financially. And often we kind of depend on one or two people that really donate. And when those folks don't donate, it's tough. Now, and you don't want to be like, hey, what's up with your, it's donations. People are giving you money to do this work. That's how nonprofits work. So we could really use your support. And if you're going like, hey, I just came into a lot of money. My Bitcoin, or my dog do, or whatever they call those coins now, just came through. If you want to make a donation to what we're doing, that would be great. We don't have commercials. We don't have any of that. We're hoping to do more, even do some teaching seminars that maybe we'll charge a little bit for. We'll help go to the church, where it's like a teaching, or, maybe I'll do some teaching on Tillich and some different things like that as we get more organized. But like I said, we're a man down right now, and so that's going on. I also got some personal information this week that I thought I would be fine with, but for some reason it kind of hit me really weird, and it was kind of tough to deal with and kind of go through the week dealing with that. And luckily I've got an amazing analyst, which is a psychoanalyst who's been really great to help me through that. But so we're kind of having a tough time right now. So I'm just always transparent with you guys. And that's where we're at. You can go to revolutionchurch.com and do the support there. I'm sure, maybe Josh can even put the link up if I don't know if that's possible. I'm not familiar with this technology. That is the devil's workshop. I'm just so pure. But yeah, if you want to go there and support us a little bit, that would be great. So thank you. There you go. There's that. All that crapola out of the way. But yeah, life is tough, and it's tough for each one of us. We all go through tough times. We all suffer. We all have to live life on life's terms, and it's not easy, but that's okay, because that's life. And you don't always get what you expect, and you have to stay on, keep moving forward. We've been doing Revolution since 94, so that's 20, what is that? 26, 27 years almost. I'm 45 now. I was like 18 when we started, so yeah, it's pretty nuts. So if you want to invest in something that's consistent, if you want to donate to a church that's consistent, Revolution is a consistent community that's been around for a long time. That's my pitch. We are consistent. We are there. We may have moved from city to city and state to state, but eventually we'll probably be in your state. But we've stayed consistent. It's funny when you it's like times like this where I can't look at preachers and sneakers and stuff like that, because you're just like, oh my God, that's insane. Of course, I wear really high-end sneakers. That's why I only shoot from the chest up, and really high-end pants. So I don't want anybody to see that. Wink. So yeah, we can use your help. My financial guy was like, what are you doing? Are you asking people for money? And then Steve recently was like, you should ask for money. So this is what I'm doing. Please, if you can give to us, and you'd be like, well, I don't want to give to a group of people that are trying to win people to Jesus. Spoiler alert, I'm not trying to win anybody to Jesus. I'm just trying to help you think well, ask questions, look at the world differently. And I do that through a lot of Jesus' teachings and Paul's teachings, Hegel's teachings and things like that. But Revolution's a very different community than most. And been really influenced by Peter Rollins and pyrotheology. And now Hegel and even Freud. I've been listening to some Freud, and it's just mind-boggling how well Freud wrote. He's such a good writer, even if you don't agree with everything Freud said, because I'm sure you're smarter than he is or was. But yeah, he's pretty clever fella. We're going to be in Philippians, so if you have your Bibles with you, flip on over to Philippians. I'm such a bad pastor, bad teacher, that I was like, oh, I want to do that verse. I was like, oh, it's in Philippians. Philippians is in the New Testament, right? And that was my first thought. So let's just get into that. Paul Tillich, who was one of the greatest theologians and philosophers of the 20th century, was, I think, on the cover of Time magazine, and I want to say either 63 or 68. I'm not sure on that date completely. I get when the Beatles came and when Tillich was on the cover of Time magazine confused. But Paul Tillich, great thinker, great communicator. Again, another great communicator, another amazing writer, that he can write books that you can barely understand, and then he can do sermons that anybody can understand. But Tillich said something like this. He talks about the God beyond God. What happens at the death of God? What is on the other side of that? And so I wrote in my own thoughts and my own ideas, my own step back even just from that little, the God beyond God idea, was what happens when we kill the God we have made in our own image or in our tribe's image? What happens when that God ceases to exist? And as a lot of us who were raised in the church and then started asking questions and stuck around, we start to realize that even the God that we were raised with and the traditions that we were raised with don't exist within the structure of Christianity, don't exist within the structure of the Bible. Like we just kind of, we've created certain things, we've Americanized it, it's like supersize. We've supersized the Bible. And we also don't understand how Judaism works or things like that. And so we just take the New Testament and just kind of turn it into like our own thing. So here is the idea of like, what is the God beyond God? The God that exists beyond belief, the God that exists beyond doubt, the God that exists beyond atheism, even the God that exists beyond, what's the word I'm looking for? Agnosticism. What's that? What is that? For me, that was something I found in recovery, in the 12 steps. And something I found more through Rollins's work, through McGowan's work, and through Hegel, and through Tillich. Something greater than I ever grasped, something bigger, something more, but it's just something that I cannot even verbalize, just something that is. Something that is and isn't. As far as east to west, that kind of thing. So you could almost have some biblical support for this idea and this concept. And so that's where I've been moving lately, is the God beyond God, that idea of living even beyond faith and doubt, and way, way beyond certainty of either doubt or faith. It's a strange place to be, and I'm not a mystic or anything like that. I'm not like, I'm not going to bring out the crystals or anything like that. It's not even that. It's something that it's just, I think we can't grasp that it makes it so great. And you don't think that there's anything beyond. It's hard to sometimes think that there's something beyond existence. And it's pretty radical when you start to kind of like go, I mean, that could only be God. Anyway, we're not going to get too much into that. I'm sorry if I've confused some of you. It's not my plan, but don't worry. The Lutherans love Paul Tillich, and so he's not a complete heretic. That's my job. So in Philippians, we're gonna start out with Philippians 3. So flipping on over there. I love pastor jokes, combining the two, because usually pastors can be dads or moms, and so they like the cheesy jokes. So what happens when we kill the God that we've made in our own image, or that we've made in our tribe's image, or that we've made in our political image, or our God's image, or, patriotic image? Now, we go into the scripture. All these contradictions, get used to contradictions, because that's just part of life, one. And part of my work, I embrace the dialectic and I embrace contradictions. They do work together often. And sometimes a contradiction or dialectic, two opposite ideas that kind of come together, and sometimes they can kind of come together and live somewhere beyond truth. And you go, I don't know about that, Jay. That's okay. You don't have to. Trust me on that. Look into it, research it, read, study, do the work. But I've even found that in seeing my analyst. And my analyst says, there's something here. You have these two contradictions. And I'm like, is there a truth? And he goes, no, it's something that's beyond truth. And that really stuck with me, this idea of something that's beyond this idea of right or wrong. Something that just lives beyond that. That's like the God beyond God. And you get into this really, really deeper level of living and life and seeing things differently, and you go, it's not all black and white. It's is it gray? But is gray okay? And I think he's like, yeah, this gray is important. This is an important gray. And so that's where I'm at. I live in the, what is it, Schroeder's cat, or I don't know, Schoenberger's, I can't ever remember his name, but the dead cat that's alive and dead in the box at the same time. Anyway, I'm not going to get too much into that. Philippians 3:10. Paul writes, I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection and the sharing of his suffering by becoming like him in his death, if somehow I may attain the resurrection from the dead. Now, why I want to talk about the resurrection from the dead when I'm saying God beyond God and things like that is because I'm going to bring it back home. I'm going to bring it back into my wheelhouse, into my more expertise ideas, is that Christ and resurrection beyond death is something that Paul really did work hard on helping us see. The ideas of grace, unconditional love, no hierarchy, no male, no female, no Jew, no Gentile, no slave, no free, taking Christ's teachings of loving your enemies even to another degree, because he had this idea of this concept of grace, which we've talked about here before, is anarchy, because it doesn't follow anybody's laws, and it's so inclusive that it's more inclusive than any of us will ever be or want to be or admit that we're not. And so Paul builds on that, what's past that. So it's almost the God beyond God, the Christ beyond Christ. Paul doesn't really talk a lot about the life of Christ. He talks about something that happens after Christ. We hear the apostles, the apostles, the 12, we hear them, we read the Gospels and we see Christ's life and what happened, and he did this, Jesus said this, and Paul is more focused on what happens post-Christ, what happens to Christ after Christ. And that's where these concepts of grace and inclusion and these different things come in. This is also why I always hammer on the idea that you should really question the pastoral epistles and look at them in different ways. And I don't value them at all, really, because I think they do Paul a great disservice. And they do the idea of what is life after Christ, what is living in the resurrection. I was talking to my friend Steve, who I think it was told when he was like 33 years old that he would die from HIV in the 80s when everybody was dying. And, on Monday, he turned 69. I hope that was okay to give out his age. He turns 49. Good looking fellow. And he's a miracle. And to me, I look at Steve's life as someone who's living within the resurrection, living the second coming in his life. Science, medical experts, the whole world said, you're dead. You are going to die. And now he's survived a freaking global pandemic. It's this idea is that Steve Peters is living the resurrection, because by science and by medical understanding and by just even general understanding of that, what happened at that time, he is dead to their understanding. He died. He had to die. But there was something greater than him and greater than himself that said, no, he must live. And so I see that as a type of resurrection, if you will, if I can play with words today and try to take a more radical view of this. And my own self, 3 years ago, tried to take my life and failed and woke up in a hospital. Didn't plan that. And to me, it's almost like I've had a second lease on life of seeing something greater than myself, living something greater than myself, but also at the same time, accepting myself. My mom, in the late 70s, early 80s, wrote this book called I Gotta Be Me. And, I thought, oh, that's cute. And, she did this little book and blah, blah, blah. And I remember when someone said, gotta be me. That doesn't sound very Christian to me, A real progressive person said that too once. I remember thinking that. I was like, okay. And what I've realized is I do have to be me in order to live. And some of the reasons why I didn't want to live is because I wasn't being me and who I am and who I believe I was, created to be. And so I had to be me and learned the importance of that. And sharing in the death and resurrection is sharing in that suffering and remembering in that suffering that you had so much happening. You had doubt, Christ feeling abandoned on the cross, Christ making sure his mother was taken care of, and Christ forgiving everyone, saying they really don't get this. They don't grasp what's happening here. So you have that all happening within this horrific death. And within this resurrection, Paul's not talking about the days that Jesus walked the earth. Paul's talking about Christ after. Like we are living within a time of the resurrection. And I also kind of worry this, is that maybe we're waiting on something that's happening already. Maybe we're waiting on something and it's here in the now and we're living in it. Okay, I'm not going to get that. That's just an idea. So I'm just throwing out ideas and thoughts. So just do what you want with that. But I like that. And the reason I read that verse is one of the things that Paul, the cool thing about Philippians is written from prison. Paul is in prison when he's writing this book for preaching the gospel. He oversold some timeshares. It was really weird. So Paul's in prison. And one of the verses that I think a lot of us can hear a lot of, probably heard a lot growing up, is Philippians 4:13, where it says, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. So I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I remember being a teenager and like, I'm going to put that on my skateboard. So I can do all these tricks through Christ who strengthens me. And, but that's not the concept. I remember hearing preachers say this about, like if I wanted to, when I was asking you guys to make donations and saying, hey, can you support our work? Because we're hurting right now. The church is kind of broke right now. I would have been like, but we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, and we can get on TV and we can do this and we can be on 4 different stations, But what Paul is saying is I can do this prison time through Christ who strengthens me. I can enjoy life, I can live life well, and I can also suffer life through Christ who strengthens me. That's what he's saying. And I'm going to, let's take a broader look at this for a second. In Philippians 10:1, 10:1, and Philippians 4:10, it says, I rejoice in the Lord greatly that now at last I have revived your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned for me, but had no opportunity to show it. Now that I am referring to being in need, for I have learned in this content with whatever I have learned to live within this content or this context of being in prison, to learn with whatever I have. I know what it is to have little, and I know what it is to have plenty. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being well fed and going hungry, of having plenty and having been in need. I can do, and that's where he says this, I can do all things through him, Christ, who strengthens me. In any case, it was kind of you to share in my distress. So he's saying, I can make it. I can live this life. I've learned to do that. But your concern and your support has really helped me. I honestly didn't plan that to be in line with us saying, like, hey, we need support right now. That wasn't the plan, because that's an old fundraising trick. But that's what he's saying. He's saying, I can make it through this, but I can make it better with you. I can do all things. I can do prison time. Now, the reason I actually am doing Philippians, I'm going to do this backwards. We're going doop, doop, and now we're going to jump into the front of Philippians, is for this very interesting reason, I think, is when he's saying, I can do all things that strengthen me. Now, for me, when I think about this idea of the concept of God beyond God is when I'm able to just live my life. I'm able to live my life and live in a place that is me. It has doubt in it. It has faith in it. It has atheism in it. It has agnosticism in it. And it also has apathy in it. That's the hardest one. Apathy is when I just don't care. Sometimes I just feel like I'm so tired. You know, you get so tired and you get so tired of going that you just kind of go like, I'm done. I just don't feel anything right now. And so for me, this is beyond that. God beyond God takes all that within it, all those contradictions, all the dialectics, takes it and goes, and it just, so that's me. Yeah, but we all live here. We all live there. That's why this is important. It's because we all live in these places where those areas in our lives exist and come through us, and we have times of experience where we just don't care. Like once a month, I can be sitting in my room and my phone can just be like ding, ding, brr, brr, and I don't even care. Like usually I'm like, if people know me, I'm always online doing stuff, always on my phone. Honestly, it's a bad habit that I'd like to change because I think the phone is a machine that lies to us. A lot. Some truth, but a lot of lies as well. And it stresses me out. But there's some like once a month, I just like, so, that's the once a month you don't want to reach out to Jay if everything in your life is going to hell because I'm just like, oh, can't do it. Can't do it. I just don't care. I just don't have the strength to even care right now. I don't even have the strength to read something right now or to even stare at a screen or look at a screen. It's just all wiped out. And I was thinking about that last night. But this idea of faith, this idea of this concept of something beyond, the resurrection, the God beyond God, the God that exists after the death of God, if you will. It allows for these areas to be, and for me to be, and for me to rest, and to be and do all things, and have all those things. And for me, through Christ, through the concept of grace, to have all those things. That's where grace kind of moves through it all. Even to like, for me, grace, if tomorrow someone came in and was like, look, I've proven that Jesus didn't exist and that this was all a lie and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, guess what? I had got a gift from this person that was made up and doesn't exist, and it's called grace. And that's never going anywhere because it's eternal, It's beyond my understanding, and I will live through that and with that forever. So there you go. That's me. It's still the resurrection. But in First Philippians, I love this "I can do all things" thing. Because I think he hits you. I think Paul has this weird train of thought where sometimes he writes, and he gets another idea, and he's like, oh, that's good, but it could have been set up in a little bit of a different order, like he'll rant. Like I feel like Romans and Ephesians both kind of like, you're like, oh my gosh, we're all going to hell, and then grace, it's like this, and sometimes I'm like, oh, you should put all that in the front and then put this in the back, and this is how I would have done it. But at the same time, it's good if you're just reading it out of blue. And, if you're like somebody at, looking at the Gideon Bible in the hotel. But Philippians 2, what was it? 1-6. Paul writes, if then there is any encouragement in Christ and any consolation from love, any sharing in the Spirit, any compassion and sympathy, make my joy complete. Be the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from selfish ambitions or conceit, but in humility regard others as better than yourself. Let each of you look not to your own interests, but to the interests of others. Let the same mind be in you that was in Christ Jesus, who though he was in the form of God, did not regard equality with God. And I feel like a lot of us, we're not even in the form of God, or maybe we're made in God's image, we do return the favor and create God in our own image, and we become God. Look at how some of us act on social media when our ideas and thoughts are questioned. I mean, if you don't think canceling is a God move, you're missing. You're going like, I cancel you. I give you grace. I give you mercy. I give you favor. I take my favor off of you. I mean, it sounds like this really strange Christian God that I grew up with, like the idea of a Christian God that I grew up with, not what I believe God to be now. But that concept of this kind of whimsical God of, these are the bad people, these are the good people, and these, in just a real sixth grade reading of the gospel, just not understanding, the original language or customs of the time or the text, even really the text, or, when it was written and to whom it was written and what it was written about. So, when you just have this kind of So what the idea here is when you go and you look in Paul saying, I can do all things, and then Paul here at the very beginning, one of the all things I think that would be covered by that is, help me to not see other people help me not to see myself as better than other people. Let me not live in a world where I demand my own way. I mean, to me, it's like Christians are known for one thing in the United States, and that is a group of folks that demand their own way, and if they don't get it, they're going to freaking pass a law to make it that way, so you have to do it. And that's exactly the opposite of the gospel. That's exactly the opposite of what Paul says. You don't come in and say, everybody's got to be a Christian. If you're not a Christian, you're done. Everybody's got to live like a Christian. If you don't live like a Christian, you're done. It doesn't say that. He's encouraged us to be of one mind in our communities and to think different ways, but, that's why I think our community is so cool, is that we have such a diverse community of thinking. Our thoughts of our community are so different. We all have different political beliefs and different ideas of what God is and different ideas of faith and sexuality and all these different thoughts. And we come together as a community and we disagree well. And when you disagree well, you are being in one accord because you're saying there's room for us to not have to agree. We can be of one mind by agreeing to disagree well and respectful and to argue well with one another. That's the thing, as we think of being in one accord as no arguing. I mean, the disciples argued with each other. Paul and Peter argued with each other. Paul and James, I don't think even liked each other. But they were a part of a community, and there was an area for them to speak truth to one another, to disagree with one another, but there wasn't room to throw one another out. There was something beyond it. It was something that they both saw that was beyond it. And Paul saw something that was way beyond the resurrection, way beyond their understanding, way beyond even their own experiences, way beyond even Peter's own experiences of walking with Jesus. Paul never met Jesus in the flesh, never saw Jesus in the flesh. And Paul had a greater concept and idea of what the resurrection meant than Peter did, who walked with Jesus. So that gives you an idea of what the importance of learning and thinking and growing can do for us, and arguing well. And so you get that. And so when I think when Paul is saying, I can do all things, and he's in prison, I can do all things here, I can survive this time, I can survive being alone, I can survive the loss of everything, I can survive the fact that I'm probably going to be killed in here. He's also saying I can survive being parts of communities that don't see eye to eye. I can survive arguing with Peter. Some of us, if we argued with the heads of the church, if there was we argued with the Pope, which is not the head of our church, I guess, but we'd be devastated, or someone that we hold up really high, and that's the scene police or something, and of the top of our scene, and then, oh my God, I can't believe it, it would just wreck us. And Paul realized that things were too important to allow situations like that to wreck him, that he could survive it, and that he could push against the grain and still be a part of a community. But also the community has to realize that I'm going to be willing to listen to people who push against the grain. I am going to be willing to listen to folks who disagree with me. And right now, that's where we are in culture. I I mean, the media is being restricted on how it reports on virus and things like. I'm not saying that from like a conservative point of view. I'm saying that from like super left media. When I read stuff I read in the super left media is like, hey, there's things happening here. I put up a thing from Russell Brand up on my Instagram. You should really watch it. You know, that guy's brilliant, you know, and a good thinker, and open to really tough dialogue. And is an inspiration for me because I want us to be able to have these tough dialogues and ask these questions, you know, so we can inherit the kingdom of God here on earth as is in heaven, you know, that we can live within, you know, live life well, and that we can love our neighbors well and love our enemies well, and grow and change from that. I do believe that these types of ideas can reform the church and actually can save the church. I do believe that. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I do it. Because I think there has to be a radical change. I think Phyllis Tickle was right when she said every 500 years the church has a garage sale. You know, and I was a part of the emergent church, and I think we all thought we were going to do it, and it ended up not happening, and we all stopped being emergent. I guess submerged again. But I believe that. But we have to have ears to listen, and we have to be willing to disagree with each other well and grow together. And know that we can do that in community, and we can do that with grace. And as people who claim Christianity as a Christian, I believe that that's my work. That's what we're called to do as a community. That's what I'm called to do as a speaker and a leader. So we just have to get the word out there. We just have to encourage other people to think like this and think well. And there may be, like right now, there's 18 of us listening, you know, but there's 18 of us that can go out there and live this example and show this by life, show this through life. I know it's tough, but that's what community's for, you know. This week I was really, really tough week, you know, and I had a great analyst. I called Steve. We talked. I called Josh. We talked, you know. Talk to people in the community. And it helped. And so I'm here this morning. You know, that's the beautiful thing about community. And that we do carry each other's burdens. So it's simple as that. It's just simple as that, which isn't very simple at all. Thanks. Listen, so with that, I'm going to go back to the supporting church, because obviously if I'm going to be a good leader, I have to tell you what our needs are. And our needs is, you know, honestly, we need to raise about $3,000 to $4,000 a month to keep this thing going comfortably. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. And I want this not to just be something that's growing comfortably. I want to see this community grow even more. And I want to see, you know, I want to be on different platforms, because I believe this message. I believe in this message, you know, and I believe that I'm good at giving this message, and that I'm good at talking about practical things and taking complicated ideas and turning them into practical things. And I believe in my work. So I hope you'll join me in this work and stand with me and let us move this stuff forward. You know, one of the cool things is that I don't know, I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I've been full-time parenting, so I'm really tired. I need a nap. I really desperately need a nap. But I don't think I'm going to have time, because I think the kids are on their way back now. But I'll take one tomorrow. I love you guys. If you can support us, that'd be great. I'm going to look at some talks. Oh, look, I got somebody asked me. Okay. Well, this is our Q&A, our Afterglow. I'm going to try to do Afterglow, even though I just have the phone here, which is harder to read off of. But look, are you liberal or conservative? You know what? I have always been, I'm a lifelong, Daniel asked, I'm a lifelong Democrat. But the past couple years, I've become very disillusioned with my own party, and that has not driven me to the right. It has driven me further to the left. I really liked Bernie Sanders. I thought he was really great. So yeah, that's if you want know what my political stance is. But also, I don't believe in scapegoating. So I don't like when people on the left scapegoat the right and try to be like, the right is all the problem. And I was like, no, the problem is probably capitalism and how we've just done the same thing and how really there's not that much difference between the right and left. You know, for me, it's like, you know, Trump seemed really awful, but to me, it was because he said a lot of stuff out loud that other politicians are smart enough just not to say. And so for me, I'm really disillusioned with politics. But there you go. I'm a punk rocker more than, you know, that's how I think. Okay, I'm going to read through some of these questions if I can. I'm not going to go all the way back. Praying for revolution, thank you. Zoe earlier said two things can be true at the same time. I mean, two different things can be two opposite things can be true at the same time. That's dialectics. I learned that a lot through dialectic behavioral therapy, which I highly recommend for anybody if you're looking for a good therapy. And, Steve Peters says, no, I'm proud to be 69. I mean, that's just a miracle, folks. If you don't believe in miracles, talk to Steve. Hand clap, thank you. Nice to see that. Oversold timeshares. Zoe laughed at that. Thank you, you got that. Little inside baseball. The Romans roller coaster. It's true, Steve says that. The sheep and the goats, yep. And we can go, I could talk, I'm going to do a whole talk on that, Steve, actually. Steve says, it always amazes me to witness the way so many Christians ignore the fact that they live in a country that the freedom of, oh shoot, I got to push C more. Freedom of religion in the Constitution, right? Zoe says, I love James and I love Jay and I love Paulinian pastors. Thank you is why. We got you, Jay, says Ken. Thank you, Ken. Zoe asks, does 3K or 4K pay Caleb Rowe? Probably more close to 4K would help us there. I mean, I think 3K would do the job, but 4K would make it so we can do our work, pay our bills, you know, cost money for us to do all this online, the lights and the cameras and the being online, and eventually we're going to have to be paying rent somewhere. So yeah, probably more close to 4 would help that because we'll be paying rent hopefully soon. Steve says we need to make sure revolution continues. It's important work. Thank you, Steve. I do appreciate that. Bob, good to see you, buddy. Says the problem is capitalism. I agree with Robert there. And if you think, Jay, that's crazy, I can recommend some books. Just hit me up like on Instagram or Twitter. Joel, my cuz. Let's see if I can read his whole comment. Thanks for being here today, Jay. Up since 5 a.m. with a sick little one. Oh, I'm sorry, Joel. Not feeling great myself. Uh-oh. That's the fun of being a parent, is when you have a sick little one, you become a sick big one. Got to a live talk. You did. The message was needed. Thank you, buddy. Jason Jess says, I love you, Jay. April says, I appreciate your raw and transparent. You are, and it's so refreshing. Thank you. And Robert says, though he is elusive, God is in charge. There you go. And Ray is watching. Wow. And a lot of you held on to to the Q&A afterwards. Thank you. That's nice. That's new. A lot of times people bail during Q&A. It's like the last worship song. I'm always like, all right, got to make it to the restaurant, make it to the Piccadilly cafeteria. Yeah, people are encouraging us to get on other platforms as soon as we can, and we're going to try to do that as soon as we can. That's the issue. The thing is, one of the things that the multi-platform thing is it's either $14 or $75, and we haven't quite figured it out yet. But it's looking more like the multi-platform is going to cost us $75 a month to do. So we're looking at that as well. Well, thank you, everybody. As you see in the Revolution Church, says Revolution Church put up the donation link, so you can go there and make a donation. We really would appreciate it. I honestly don't want to spend all my time trying to raise funds, but I love my work and I love this community so much that I will do it if I need to do it for the near foreseeable future. It's a really hard thing, you know. It's funny when you run a church this long and you do this kind of stuff, and then, you know, you get empathy sometimes for those TV preachers. But then it gets to the point where you're like, oh, he's got $10,000 shoes on. But you never know the story behind any of that shit. Life's complicated. And some of their times those guys are trying to fill a lack that they can't, that TVs and lights and cameras and success aren't bringing them. And so they think maybe shoes will bring them peace, you know. I'll tell you what, shoes usually don't bring you peace. Don't usually fill the lack. And big houses and cars and stuff like that won't do it either. And neither will God. So if God can't do it, you know, I don't think that stuff will either. I just want to have conversations. I'm not here to judge you about what you wear or what you don't. So hopefully we can be a better community. And we can be a community where people like that are welcome to come and sit down and talk to us. And, you know, maybe even give us some ideas on how to survive. I mean, hell, if they can afford $10,000 shoes, you know, maybe they can teach us how to raise some money to stay on on social media. All right, everybody. Love you so much. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being with us this week. And, yeah. Take care of each other. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. To make your 100% tax-deductible donation today, please visit revolutionchurch.com/donate. You can also learn more by clicking the donate section on the website.